Hello and welcome to Organic Edible Garden and Kitchen. Welcome Egan.
Thanks Rob. Today we're going to be picking some Bourbosque pears and then I'm going to be taking them into the kitchen and making a pear and feijoa crumble with a really nice nutty spicy topping. And Nellie's going to be joining us and letting us know what's just so special about pears.
And this week in the garden we're going to plant our root crops. Our beetroots are sizing up well and our summer carrots are coming to the end. And as a challenge for our kitchen, we're going to plant Swedes and turnips. Never use secateurs for these guys, and be careful of the fruiting spur, which is this part here, because that will fruit for the next 50 years with pears on it. So we just flip it up and they easy come off. This is the bed we're going to sow our root crops in, and today we're going to sow Swedes, turnips and radishes. And the thing about these guys is they're all brassicas, so crop rotation is really important. This bed was previously planted in solanums, so it's great that we plant our root crops after those. The thing about solanums are, they like a slightly acidic soil, and brassicas are like a slightly alkaline, so the first thing we're going to add to the soil is some lime. The other thing we're going to add to the soil is some rock dust. And the reason we're going to do this is because all of the solanums take a lot of potassium out the soil, which is for fruiting plants. And we don't want these guys to fruit. We just want a lot of phosphorus so they can do their bulbing roots. And this mixed with seaweed has at least 72 minerals, which is also going to make them nice and nutrient dense. We're going to use our rototiller. This will put the additives into the soil, but it's also going to break up any of the lumps. And when planting small seeds like brassica seeds, it's really important that it's light and friable. Also, because it's a root crop, we want to get rid of any of the big stones or clumps underneath the soil. I'm just going to smooth the bed now with a rake. And if you don't have a rototiller, the rake can probably do the whole job. For my 3 crops, I'm just going to make 3 furrows along the length of the bed. The centre one I'm going to put the Swedes. The reason is they grow larger and take longer than the other 2. It doesn't look like a lot of seeds, but there's probably a couple hundred. And what we've learned over the years, instead of putting too many seeds in and having to thin them like you should, it actually does more damage than good. So we're just going to sow a little bit lighter than usual. These little white turnips are really fast growing and are great to eat raw in salads. And one of the great things about living in a multicultural society is that we've learned that the tops of them are also really tasty and can be eaten in stir fries or steamed. These are little round radishes called Easter eggs. They're multiple colour and it's suitable for this time of the year. I'm just going to lightly smooth them over. I don't want them planted too deep. And it's a great time of year to put these guys in. They like constant moisture, and this time of year the soil's nice and damp. These guys will germinate in about 5 to 8 days, and they'll stay in the ground until we're ready to use them. The only thing we have to do now is use the netting and cover them up.
One of my favourite ways to enjoy pears is in a traditional fruit crumble. I like pairing them with feijoas, as feijoas have a slightly tart and vibrant flavour that works nicely with them. This fruit crumble, while traditional, is still going to have a little twist to it. I'm going to make my raw version, but you could also make this as a cooked version. First of all, I'm going to take the pears and slice them up on a mandolin. Take about 4 pears here. I'll just take the tops and top and tail them. So I'll take my mandolin here and I've set it to quite a fine setting using the back of it here. And now I'm going to slice them into nice thin slices which are going to layer through the crumble. We've got a pile of pears there. Now to prevent them going too brown, we're just going to add a little bit of lemon juice to them. Now I'm going to take a little baking tray. You could use any dish. You could also make these into individual ones. So just going to layer those all up. Don't need to be too precious about it. Just make sure they're nicely layered and it's nice and tight in there. It might look a little messy now when you're doing it, but it will look great in the end result. Okay, I'm going to set the rest of the pears aside while I slice up some feijoas to add into here. So the idea is that I layer pears and feijoas, and then we're going to put the crumble on top. Another thing you could do here is add a little bit of chia seed to the mix and just sprinkle some on, because as the juices release, the chia seed would absorb some of the moisture and help keep it nice and gummy in there. Okay, so I'll take my feijoas. Oh, they smell incredible. Rob grows a really nice variety of feijoas, much like the ones that my mum and dad grew when I was growing up. So I'm just going to slice these all up and I'm just going to scoop them out. Like with the pears, we don't need to worry if they're perfectly cut. It is going to sort of magically sort of blend all together. So I'm just going to scoop these in. Now I'm just going to take a fork and crush my feijoas down a little bit. And then it's time for another layer of pears. And then the rest of the feijoas. And finish off with the rest of the pears. So that's 3 layers of pears and 2 layers of feijoas, and you can see already just how much fruit is going in here. It's amazing. So if you don't have feijoas, you could use another sort of juicy tart fruit, something like blackberries would work really well in here. And of course you could substitute the pears for apples. So just press down on that firmly, make sure it's nice and tight. And you'll see some juices coming up there. So that one's all done, and now to make the topping. I've got the food processor here. And first of all, I'm going to blend up the dates. So I've got a good handful or 2 of medjool dates. And then first of all, I'm going to blitz these up. These are nice and sticky now. I'm going to go and add the walnuts and the almonds over here. So I've got a good handful of my activated walnuts and activated almonds. And so activated nuts are nuts that have been soaked to break down the phytates and make them more digestible, and then I've dried them to make them nice and crunchy and crispy. We've also got some cinnamon, a good teaspoon of cinnamon in there, and a teaspoon of ginger. So both pear and feijoa go really nicely with ginger. Instead of adding dried ginger on the top, you could add fresh ginger into the filling. I've got a good pinch of salt. Adding salt to things with spices in brings out the flavour of the spices. And I've got a cup of coconut, dried coconut in there too. Now I'm going to go and blend that up into a beautiful crumbly, sticky mixture. I'm just pulsing it rather than blending it. I want some texture in there. You want it to be a crumble rather than a pastry. So I just keep going until I've got a nice sort of sticky but still crunchy, crumbly result. Okay, we're going to press this crumble in. Another nice thing to do is actually add a little bit of butter to it, like an almond butter or a coconut butter while you're blending, and that'll just increase the fat content and make it a little bit more buttery. So we're going to press this on. So put quite a generous amount on there. Press it in nice and firmly. And add a nice little crumb on top. And I'm just going to finish the top there with a little bit of lemon zest. And we're done. And what you want to do with this now is pop it in the fridge for around 30 minutes. It just helps, especially if you put chia in there, the chia will absorb some of the liquid and it just sort of settles down and the flavours settle down in there as well. And then it's ready to serve. I'm going to serve that with some ice cream. So this is some cashew and coconut ice cream that I've made. And just garnish it with some of these beautiful cornflowers. So with the cornflowers, they've got such nice petals. You can just pick them off and toss them across the plate. And we're ready to eat.
Hi Meg.
Hi now.
So what's on the menu today?
So I've got a dessert today, a dessert that's healthy enough to have as your breakfast, and it's made from pear and feijoas.
Wow, lovely. So the main thing about pears is that they're incredibly digestible. So commonly are given to babies as their first food, and they're also very low allergenic food. So that's a perfect thing to give your baby. Like a lot of those fruit and vegetables, the main component and the antioxidant value is in the skin of the plant. So just make sure you really do eat the skin. They're really good, those bits. They contain a particular flavanol called quercetin, which has been also shown in lots of research to be really good for balancing blood sugar levels, and particularly for women because they increase the sensitivity of insulin to the cells, and that's really important for making sure that you keep weight off. And it seems that if you eat apples and pears alongside each other, that's a really good thing for type 2 diabetics because it really helps control their blood sugar levels. And finally, pears are a really good source of soluble fibre, and they have something in them called pectin. And what pectin does is it helps rid the body of excess cholesterol, but it also feeds all those good bacteria in your gut to keep your digestive system really healthy.